guys, today we're going to be talking about shading, and we are going to shade in this baseball, and we're going to do this assignment as a class so that we all have a really good idea of how to start and finish a drawing on our own before we move on to other more complicated things. So you can see here, the first thing I want you to do when you look at a picture is I want you to notice where the lights and the darks are. So we can see on this baseball that it is darker on the outside, except for this bottom part, and it is light in the middle. And then we've got these pure black threads. We have these little white lines over some and under some, and we've got some little white highlights on the sides as well. So if we know what's light and dark before we even get started, that I think helps us with our actual drawing. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to find a round object to trace for our ball. I mean, you could draw it freehand, but it might be a little bit wonky. I think when it comes to a ball shape, you might as well just find a similar sized item to trace. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to use a pencil for this, and I'm going to do this extremely lightly. And the reason extremely lightly is because if you look at that baseball again, it does not have an outline on it. Cartoons have strong outlines around them, but realistic objects don't. And since we're going for realism, we don't want a dark outline. So the line around your baseball should be almost invisible, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start shading it in lightly. Remember we talked about with charcoal that we slowly make things darker as we go along. So I have another piece of paper beside me, and I'm just going to check my blending stick and see how much tone is on it. If I want more tone on my blending stick, what I can do is I can just go and put a little bit of charcoal down, and then I can kind of like put a little bit on my blending stick just to get some more tone if I feel that it is going too light. The other thing, of course, is I could use my piece of Kleenex, or I could use a piece of cloth to do the same thing. So I could also roll my finger up in some Kleenex, tap it on some charcoal, and just get some charcoal on the Kleenex. And actually, that's what I think I'm gonna do first here. And then I'm gonna go around, and I'm just going to very lightly fill in the baseball. I wanna make this as smooth as I can while I do. Okay, I filled in most of it there, but I didn't go right to the edges. Now I'm gonna use my blending stick, and I'm going to start going around the entire outside of the baseball. I'm taking my time. I'm going slowly. Now, unfortunately, I can really not quite see those pencil lines that I drew once I started going over it like this. But I'm gonna try to fill it in the best that I can right to the edges. You might have a little bit more success if you have a smaller blending stick. Okay, now there's a problem here. This does not look blended at all. It looks like a ring around the center. So what I'm going to start doing is just very slowly and very lightly fading that edge out. And I'm not bringing that fade right into the middle. I want the middle to stay light, but I want the rest of the ball to be darker on the outside and then light on the inside. And I'm just going to keep going around like this. Sometimes you can take it, if you feel that it's not blending well enough, you can just try little circles instead of back and forth, but I personally prefer back and forth. And remember, if it's not looking great at this point, we're just starting, it's okay, because we're gonna do lots of cleaning and tidying up of this as we go along. Right now, we just want it to look like it's darker on the outside and lighter on the inside, that it's very smooth looking. And that it slowly fades into the middle. And really what I'm looking for here is that smoothness. So it looks like a really smooth gradient. I don't have any lines that are really showing up here. And what I mean by lines is like, it doesn't look like this inside where I can see all the little lines, okay? I'm just going nice and slow and light. And I'm going over the same area over and over again until it starts blending smoothly with the rest of the part around it. Well, that's getting a little better. Not as smooth as I think I could get it, but I'm limited for time here. And any places that I didn't think got smooth enough, I'm just really lightly going around with circles instead. And that sometimes helps me as well. Okay. Now, you could do the whole thing in blending stick. As I said, you didn't have to start out with the Kleenex if you didn't want to. I think I would have had more control probably with my blending stick, just sticking to that the first time. Okay. That's getting smoother. Now, the problem is the inside, if I compare with the baseball, is not very light yet. And I actually want to exaggerate and make that inside even lighter, because that way it'll really look like it is popping off the page. So I'm going to get my kneadable eraser and I will just knead it until like a lot of the dark stuff is kind of mixed in, because I don't want my kneadable eraser kind of adding more darkness to it. So I've got it ready, and I'm just going to start, like, I can go back and forth on the inside like this lightly. And then we know that it is just that little bit lighter down on this side. So I'm going to go a little bit further here. And then in the very middle, I'm going to really try to get it lighter. But I want everything again to be nice and smooth. I want it to be a gradient. I don't want it to look like a donut. I want it to look like it's softly going from one tone to another. And then what I can do is I can use a white eraser and I can start tidying up the edges. And I forgot my white eraser, so here we go. And I can just go around and start tidying this up a bit. Oh, who's paging?
Hello, everyone. Staff are welcome to come for photos in the library now. Thank you.
And I'm going around. Again, I'm not really touching it if I can avoid it. And there I go. That is a little bit better shape. Now, I still want the edges. These edges right here are still quite dark, especially like around the top part, but not the bottom part. So I'm going to go around with my charcoal pencil, because remember, we're slowly adding tone. We're not just adding everything the first time. And I'm gonna go around and I'm just going to do a slightly darker line. That goes around most of it. I hope you guys can see with me being a lefty. I should have put the video camera on the other side. This is a little awkward for me. And again, I hope you guys can see how slowly I'm going. I'm not rushing this at all. There is no rush. And now I'm gonna go, and remember, I don't want to really lighten this up, but I want it to fade in softly. So I'm going around with my blending stick again, and I'm just softening that line a little bit so that it's not a hard line, but it makes part of the gradient, so that the ball really is going from quite dark at the edges to medium to light without really smoothly, just one tone slowly fading into another. And this is taking all the lessons we've learned already and sort of putting them into one. We've learned how to slowly blend things out. We've learned that if we want something to stay dark, we don't go too hard with our blending stick. And we've learned that we have a whole bunch of different tools that we can use to get the job done. Okay, so there we go so far, not bad. Again, I kind of wish I had done the blending stick at the beginning because I feel like the ball is just slightly wonky. And again, I'll go around and I'll just make sure that I've got nice crisp edges here. The next part, so that's as far as I'm going to go now. Like if I were being really picky, I would probably start going in more. Maybe I would go in even with a clean piece of Kleenex and just blend more around my outside, making it as soft as I could. But with time being a constraint here, I'm going to keep moving on. So we're looking at the stitches now. When you guys do the stitches, I want you to practice them on the side first. So you're going to go like this. Just draw a really light line, and actually I would do this on a separate piece of paper. And then you're going to draw those stitches in. I don't have a really good way for you to draw the stitches per se, except I think of like a leaf shape. So I kind of go like this when I draw my stitches. They are not completely matching all the time. There's often a stitch that's a little bit lower than the other one that's a little bit higher. And basically, you're just gonna wanna practice for a while, getting them to be about the same space apart and about the same evenness. And you want them to be about the same size as this. So practice first before you do anything else, and then approve it with me. Once you've got this approved, then you can start drawing on with pencil on your baseball. And so we're just going to draw the really light lines first of approximately where the lines are going to go. And then I will draw in my little shapes. And trying not to touch the baseball as I go along. However, I do feel as a lefty, that's a little bit more difficult. And these are pretty close to being even. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my charcoal pencil and I'm going to shade them in. And this is going to be a little bit tricky because I want to shade in that little area. So just take your time. And we want to make these pure black as we shade them in. And we want them to have as sharp edges as we can. I'm just going to turn this paper around as I fill in so that I don't get my hand all over the work that I've done already. And you can see that this pure black is contrasting really nicely with the rest of the ball. And if you guys remember, I talked about a good drawing has a variety of highlights, middle tones, and darks. And if you can show in a drawing pure black, pure white, and lots of different gray tones, you're going to get something that looks pretty good. And then I'll go to this side as well. I actually might start on the opposite side this time. Little difficult with the size of the charcoal. It's going okay so far. I unfortunately also now take a medication that makes my hands a lot shakier than they used to be. I used to have very steady hands. And not so much anymore, but that's okay. Okay, so there are my stitches on the ball, but there are still some things that we need to do to make this look the best that we can. So I'm just going in and I'm making sure that, like, if any stitches look a little bit wonky, that I just fix them up a little bit. I'm pretty happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my blending stick again. I can add a little bit of tone to it if I want by like tapping it somewhere, as I said, on my spare piece of paper. And then I'm going to go on the sides and I'm going to add little circles to each of the corners of the stitches. And that's going to make the stitches look like they're going into something. And if you've used a lot of pencil before and you haven't used charcoal before, charcoal is a different medium than pencil. You're going to get like a different look from it. You're going to obviously have a different feel from it. And so I wouldn't be upset if this isn't behaving like pencil before you, because it's not really supposed to. Okay, so I've got in the little holes right there. Now, what I want is an eraser with a sharp edge on it. So if your eraser has kind of been used a little bit and it doesn't have a sharp edge, what you can do is grab a pair of scissors and you can just cut your eraser so that it's got something really sharp to erase with right here. And I mentioned at the beginning that our ball actually has, above the stitches on the top part, it has a fine white line. And then in the middle, it has like almost no line. And then it switches and the white line goes to the bottom of the stitches. And that will be the same on this side as well. The white line is on the top of the stitches, and then about midway through it flips, and then the highlight or the light is on the bottom of the stitches. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to find the sharpest part I can with my eraser, and I'm going to start going in and adding that little highlight. And these are the details that take your drawing from decent to good, because you're following the small details. Okay, and then it goes in the middle. And then I'm gonna flip and I'm gonna start doing that white line on the bottom. And you can see what it does to the stitches. It makes them pop up. If you see a white highlight, that means it's popping up. And if you see a dark shadow, that means it's receding or going in. And we want these to look like they've got areas that are popping up, but also receding and going into the baseball, since they are stitches holding it together. So again, just going through here, and I'm flipping to the bottom, and I'm doing my highlight underneath, still not trying to touch the baseball as I do this, which is like the biggest challenge of them all. If you feel like your eraser is starting to get worn down in one spot, just flip to another. I made a small mistake right there. My eraser just kept going. So I'll go back and I'll fill that in a little bit. okay? And then I'm gonna look anywhere else and just see, so at the top of some of the stitches as well, like around where there would be like the shadow of the ball, there is still that little bit of white. So I'm just going to go above those little parts as well and just erase either over them or under them. I'm always going back, I'm tweaking, I'm making adjustments. You know, it might not look great the first time that you do it, but you just keep going and you try to, and you just try your best. And if you see a mistake, then yeah, just go and see what you can do. So now again, I want the outside as sharp as possible. So I'm using my eraser. I can try a little bit to correct any wonkiness with the proportions of the ball. However, at this point, there's not going to be a lot you can do because we know that if we erase something really dark, it's just going to look gray and we're not really going to be able to see it the greatest. Or we're not going to be able to erase it the greatest. And there you go, guys. There is a basic drawing using your charcoal. I still feel like the ball isn't quite where I want it to be around here. I feel like it could just be, I feel like the shape kind of got away on me. So I'm just going to fill that in the tiniest bit more. Try to make it a little rounder and then go around and erase. And there is a baseball.